Hi, it's me here, Nicole. So today we're going to be talking about downward facing dog. And there's two things to know about downward facing dog, right? One is that it's an advanced pose. I know sometimes we'll go to a yoga class and it's labeled beginner's class or maybe a slow flow or whatever, but we'll do downward facing dog and that's fine. But two, I think the important thing to remember is that we need a lot of prep work in downward facing dog, especially if we have any wrist pain, if we are new to maybe using strength in our yoga practice. I think using prep work is one of the key indicators and key maneuvers that I've used to take people from not being able to do downward facing dog to doing downward facing dog. Warming up the muscle groups, preparing the skeleton structure to work and take load of lifting up your body off the ground in a certain way is extremely important. So know that it can be done. It will be done. You just have to do some work into it first. And as always remember to be very compassionate and honor your body and where you are today. So we're going to need a couple of things before we get started. If you know you have sensitivity in your knees, a nice little towel or a folded up little blanket will work, and you place that in the center of your yoga mat. And then also a yoga block. If this is not available to you, think of maybe like a book or a dictionary, something like that, something that mimics this shape, okay? So let's go ahead and get started and just put those props off to the side for a moment and come into a nice tall stance. And I'm gonna turn to the side just so you can see my spine here. So I want you to find your mountain pose. The feet are right underneath the hips. And then what I want you to notice here is just the length of your tailbone, that bony part right underneath your sacrum, all the way up through the crown of your head. And just think of growing it nice and tall. And when we're downward facing dog, we're going to try to mimic as much as we possibly can the length from the tailbone anchoring down to the floor, lengthening out through the crown of the head, right? So really take note here of the length that you feel in the spine and how maybe you can mimic it in downward facing dog. And then let's just take some breaths here together. Taking the moment to notice our feet connected to the ground. Finding a little bit of stillness. Notice where your eyes are floating around, so you can bring them still, maybe down to the ground or out in front. One more breath in and breath out. Good, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the face towards you. Keep that nice tall mountain pose. We're going to start to warm up the shoulders here. So take your hands out to the side. Think of them being about maybe 4 to 3 inches away from your hips. And then notice your thumbs. Point them out. Good. Now start to make tiny movements with your hands. Think of rotating your palms to the back. Let the thumb kind of spiral in. So notice how the base of the arm, the tip of the arm bone here starts to internal rotate. And then start to turn the palm facing up towards the ceiling. And then notice how the tip of the arm starts to move away to the back of your yoga mat. Yeah, and just take note how that feels. Keep that rotation going. This is part of our warm-up prep for downward facing dog. We need to know our shoulder movements a little bit here. Good, locating the breath. Take one more, rotate those palms up and rotate them back. Good. And then relax that for a moment. Maybe take some tiny movements from side to side. Good. And now let's focus on the hands, right? Because downward facing dog does put quite a bit of weight on our hands. So we want to make sure we have the wrists nice and warm, nice and prepped before we bear weight on them. So go ahead and bring your hands together. And I want you to think of kind of opening up your hands like so, a little closer to the camera, so that you kind of have like these star-like hands. And then press the hands in together. And by pressing your hands in together, you start to create a little bit of force, a little bit of isometric muscle compression here, so that you feel the entirety of your arms start to fire up, right? So this is exactly what happens when our hands are connected to the floor. We're pressing our hands into the ground and the entirety of our arms start to fire up. Good, now think about really pressing the ball of the base of the fingers together. Think of pressing that space right underneath your palms where the wrists are meeting together. Good, now let's do some movement with the fingers. Keep those pressing hands together. Now bring the fingers in, keep the press, and then take the fingers out, keep the press. Good, just take that movement on your own rhythm and your own pace a few more times. Most importantly, keeping that subtle press. Locating your breath. Notice if you start to hold your breath as you're thinking about your actions. One more time, bring the fingers together, and then take the fingers out. Good, go ahead and release, shake it out a little bit. Let's go ahead and make our way out to the floor. So here's where you're going to grab your blanket if you need to for your knees. And then go ahead and come into a tabletop-like shape. And let's focus on the placement of our hands. So taking a look down at your hands here, I want you to really think about how you're taking up space on your yoga mat. So notice if your hands are really close together, see if you can bring them as wide as your shoulders. Even if you feel like you're coming off the yoga mat a little bit, that's okay. Just really feel like your hands are supporting the entirety of your body. Take a look down at your hands, open up the space between the fingers, and think about pressing upon those spots that we talked about. So you're pressing the ball of the fingers, the base of the palm. Now press them into the ground and think of pressing them even back toward your knees. Good, notice what that feels like in the upper trunk of your body. Let's hold here for about 2 more breaths. Notice your spine, tailbone all the way through the crown of the head. Good, and then slowly start to come up. Let's come onto the knees and grab that yoga block or that book, whatever you had. Then we're going to do a little bit, again, of that pressing into your object. And then we're going to work on our shoulder mobility here. So I'm going to turn to the side so you can see how this looks. So take that book or block away from your heart. Press the hands into your object. And then from here, I want you to keep your arms really straight. And we're going to work on retracting and protracting our shoulders. So protracting is when we're pushing our shoulder blades away. Notice how the object moves away from my heart. And then retracting is bringing my shoulder blades in. Notice how the block comes a little bit closer. And then protract out. And then this is a very small movement. So it might almost feel like you're doing nothing, but I promise this is doing a great deal of prep work, getting your scapula, your muscles around the scapula ready to bear the weight of your body, right? So this is ideal to warm up these muscles so that we go into downward facing dog and in a very sustainable way, our body is ready to carry our body weight. Good. Don't forget to breathe. Take 2 more. And then relax. Good. Bring that to the side. Good. And if you're doing this and you're like, Nicole, I'm not feeling it. I feel like I'm not doing anything. It takes some time. It took me, honestly, a couple of weeks to get this movement down. And I had been doing downward facing dog for like 5 years already. And I had not tapped in to those tiny muscles around my shoulder girdle or my shoulder blades until I started doing that practice, and downward facing dog started to feel a whole lot different, started to feel just more supportive. Okay, so stick with it. I promise that's something that's really going to change your downward facing dog. Okay, so now let's go a little bit more into the meat of it. So let's work into puppy pose first. So for puppy pose, I want you to think of taking your knees wider than your hips. And then extend your arms a little bit longer than you would like a neutral tabletop. And then tuck your toes. And then from here, think of lengthening your spine just as if you were standing. Tailbone is anchoring down and long. Crown of the head is reaching towards the floor now. Good, now press those hands into the ground and breathe. And notice all the work that's being done in this puppy pose. A lot of times we think, oh, this is a cheat for downward facing dog. Believe me, it is not. So please find the strength in your hands here. As you breathe, think of inhaling, expanding the ribs, and as you exhale, gently draw your navel towards the spine. Good, take 2 more. Inhale, full. Exhale. Last one, inhale and exhale. And then start to come up to a neutral spine. Let's take a little movement here. If you want to take a few cat-cows, you can do that. If you want to just maybe sway your spine from side to side. Good. So we're going to come into downward facing dog. If you just did puppy pose and you feel like you weren't getting that strength in your arms and you felt like you're having a little bit of trouble of sensing the strength even around the shoulder blades, I want you to stay there and still keep playing with that movement. Especially if you have wrist pain, it's really important that you feel that protraction in your shoulders, right? That rounding around. And it's really important that you feel the pressing into the hand. So I want you to stay here while we do downward facing dog. And if you're going to downward facing dog, get ready, here we go. So go ahead and come into that elongated tabletop first. Hands are wide so that they can support our shoulders. Let's start to tuck the toes. Take an inhale. And as we exhale, I want you to come up nice and slow. Think of hovering the knees. Good. Then let the hips lift. Now you can start to realign your feet. And then again, think of tailbone anchoring up and back. Crown of the head is reaching towards the floor. Good. And then if your spine is really rounded here, that's fine. Find that bend in the legs. This takes away some of the pressure out of your hands and puts it more into your feet. And then breathe here. Good. Take about 3 more breaths in your own pace. Think of protracting those shoulder blades away from the center. Think of the insides of the armpits trying to draw in towards your heart. Good. Once you're done with your 3 rounds of breath, slowly bring the knees down to the ground. Take any movement that you would like, cat-cow, sway from side to side. You just rotate in organic movement. And then come back to center. And that's about it for today. There's so many more cues that you can, that teachers can name here. There's numerous little prep work that you can do before downward facing dog. But if anything, if you take away from this is that it does take some build up to get into downward facing dog. And it does take some awareness of what your shoulder blades are doing, what your hands are doing, how your legs and your core support you. Today we focus mostly on our shoulder blades and our hands. So please let me know if this was helpful, if this was useful. Please don't forget to subscribe. I keep forgetting to mention that. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.